Allahu, 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 Allah. Allahu, 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 Allah.
Welcome to Interfaith Views and Issues show on Al-Hikmat TV 24/7 online. It is a pleasure for us to have with us in the studio a very prominent person in Miami, Florida, a man who has traveled throughout the world. He is the professor at Miami-Dade College, and before taking away the credit by I saying what a fantastic personality he is, I will now introduce to you my friend, my guest today, Dr. Michael Lenaghan.
Thank you very much. It is indeed a treat for me to be here today, especially as you and this beautiful community have been a touchstone for my own modest engagements in different parts of the world, as well as right here in our backyard, with regard to getting and recognizing and celebrating the best of each of our faith communities.
Well, Dr. Lenaghan, a man like you with your background and your experience, we need a couple days to speak about it. However, I would like you to share with our audience a little bit of your profession at Miami-Dade College, and then we'll go down to some of your trips throughout the world, like India, Indonesia, your recent trip. And I would also like you to share with our audience some of your experiences in the interfaith world. So maybe we should start with your being a professor at Miami-Dade College.
Well, thank you. Part of what you do through your spirit and commitment to people, I try to do through education. And so at Miami-Dade College, my responsibilities and my joy, my avocation, not just profession, is empowering the good people, I call them my scholars, to basically build on their strengths in mastering and putting to good social purpose the social sciences. And essentially, basically looking at each student as someone who is not a vessel that I necessarily fill, but is a partner, a co-learner in a community and in a world which I would like to see perhaps perfected by one of these students, these scholars who comes through my classroom.
And what are some of the subjects you deal with?
Well, I have the privilege of working with federal government, state and local government, international relations, intercultural communication, but also, practically speaking, conflict resolution and leadership development. And the exciting thing when you're at a place where there's multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, and multilingual students from nearly all over the world, every day presents a microcosm of the world, and basically to do not only educational enterprise, but a social experiment, leaving it better than the day before you found it.
So students in your class, Dr. Lenaghan, what degree are they normally taking for them to come to your classes and your session? I mean, what are they heading to become? What profession, what career, etc.?
Well, it's a wonderful question. On the one hand, we like to think of ourselves as democracy's college. So they may come out of high school, they may come out of different professions. They may be recent arrivals, as are nearly 3/4 of our students from some other wonderful country. And what they would be in pursuit of in taking my particular courses would be public administration, would be community organizing, would be hopefully good social policy if they went into business, or social entrepreneurship as they chose to address some of the challenges in our community. So it's essentially an Associate of Arts degree in political science, international relations.
Political science.
And as strange as that seems, a science to politics, I wish there was. But but it's an approach to essentially making human issues a little more manageable and human potential a little more realizable in the pursuit of good in our community.
And I can see studying political science definitely need your experience and your your knowledge to have that kind of what you call experience out there being a politician in the world.
Well, I like to think of it as civic engagement, meaning something we can all do, but with a little bit of self-discipline and academic discipline, we can also basically become more powerful instruments of community development as well as peace in our particular neighborhood, community, maybe our region of the world.
What year did you go to India?
In 2002, and the wonderful invitation to go there through Dr. Rajamal, the rector of that particular university. She had been an observer in my classroom over the last 4 years before inviting me to participate at her university and several others. And it, again, basically represents not someone bringing something, but someone co-learning and sharing through the many different and fascinating strategies from her particular institution, which was a women's university.
What was the name of that university?
Shillingham deemed
Yes.
university, one of the first deemed universities.
Where was that located?
In Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu.
Wow, so you have been to Madras.
So, oh yes.
What are some of the states you visited in India?
No, primarily the state setting of New Delhi, the state setting well, of course, Chennai is in Tamil Nadu, mainly Tamil Nadu, and the states surrounding the capital, as well as the states surrounding the Taj Mahal.
You've been to the Taj Mahal?
But most of my work and joys have been with colleagues, some of whom would teach in dirt floor extension schools, some of which would teach at what I call with the Bill Gates of India at Infosys, which is located there in India. And the absorption, the basically insight out of those learnings of what have informed me, I think sometimes almost shamefully, to take more back than I ever brought in my exchanges there. Likewise with Kenya, more recently in 2010 and then 2013, as they shifted to a government that chose not to go down a slippery slide towards genocide, but rather to build communities. They wanted to learn a little more about what you and I call, because you've actually been involved in some of the service learning in South Florida, they call it nation building because of mixing people of different backgrounds, both tribal and religious, in community service until such time as they might participate in jobs in the economy as well as in higher education. And it was my privilege to witness that, not so much bringing any magic answers as facilitating and listening about some of the magic that they had in their own approach to making their country more functional for the beautiful citizens of Kenya.
And I suppose that sort of experience and travel that you have experienced in life has definitely enriched your knowledge in the field of interfaith.
Well, very, 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 very much. In fact, you mentioned South Africa in terms of one of my experiences. And my first visit to South Africa was via Istanbul, Turkey. And waking up to the music of the call to prayer in the city that has more mosques than any other city in the world, I believe, was, again, a both energizing, electrifying, and also surprising experience. Again, fortunately, I had good advice from mentors like you, and also a good friend of mine, Mohammed Siddiqui, and engaging and becoming a part of other people's approach to the Almighty, to the spiritual, and also to the cultural implications of belief. And so in South Africa, where I had the privilege of having been invited by Nelson Mandela to review reform in higher education, I had to keep reminding myself that because of differences, not only limited to race, but also religious differences, part of the genius of what was evolving in South Africa under his presidency and after that had to do with people sharing the strengths from their different faiths, as well as, basically empowering me in different ways to even communicate more effectively, to be both a witness to and maybe an instrument of the different expressions of faith that touched me in the process.
So your multi-faith, multicultural experience has really enriched your interfaith knowledge, if I would want to put it like that.
Well, my interfaith appreciation, I have so much more to learn, and in fact, as I recently visited Indonesia as a member of a team exploring the possibilities of 6 Indonesian universities and 6 American higher education institutions. I was reminded on my first morning there, after traveling 42 hours, that the music in the air of the call to prayer from a masjid at the university campus was to me like a wonderful sign. This is going to be a productive, engaging, empowering.
So how did you feel to be in a country that has the largest Muslim population in the world?
I felt like extended family.
Oh.
It was basically even before official meetings, but starting in Jakarta, where I transferred to go to Yogyakarta. But when I say like extended family, there was just something amazing on the streets, again, before I met even official people, that was unique to maybe the different cultures, but the shared belief in their expressions of Islam that not only welcomed but nurtured the stranger.
So did you feel relaxed? Did you feel at home?
Very, very much. In fact, someone would say, amidst 1 million motorbikes on the street,
wow,
and you who like to walk, which I do and I did, and I would say, yes. Unlike some cities where you might feel like the target of the motorbikes, there I felt like basically exclamation mark of welcome and kind of even offer of rides.
So as an American professor living in the United States of America, the misunderstanding and misconception about Muslims in the world, seeing that you are surrounded by so many Muslims in Indonesia, what would you really tell Americans who think that all Muslims are violent and they're terrorists and Islam is a harsh religion? I mean, what would you have to tell these people?
I would first say they don't have someone who is a friend who is a Muslim.
Oh.
Number 2, I would say you don't have a friend whose faith you know about. And then number 3, that you need to be open to the genealogy of prophets if you're more theologically bent, or to the genealogy of the human family of which we're all a part at the present time, and I would say in the foreseeable future, into which we can contribute so much and receive so much in the perfection of the shared planet on which we live, not just, although including the physical environment, but the social and spiritual environment. You see, because of the 9 multiple intelligences that also fascinate and inform my work, on a spectrum, spiritual intelligence, not
That's
associated
a nice way to put it. Spiritual intelligence.
is not limited to any one faith system, but is totally evident in the faith systems that are realized most genuinely. It's been my observation.
But do you think it's lack of knowledge that make people really think that all Muslims are terrorists and are violent, because they mix up terrorist acts by some radical Muslims and then they paint that brush over the entire Muslim world? So it is inexperience, lack of knowledge that make people blame all Muslims and Islam for that. Do you think so?
What's interesting is, being Irish and Christian, you might think then that I'm a drunkard and a terrorist in Northern Ireland. In other words, and so when I kind of personalize what you're saying, I would say the non-representative behavior of one or a few should never be perceived or understood to be categorically representative of the many. But more important than that, not to go from a negative
That's the professional way of putting it.
But I mean, but also again, in the different places. One time walking in the street of India, a hand from behind me said, "You do not want to go by the bus stop today, sir." And I realized the hand was from someone much taller than me, so I was used to walking in the neighborhoods in Coimbatore. So I sat down, and he had some tea. It was a tall gentleman who I had met at the Mosque of a Thousand Lights a couple weeks earlier. And all of a sudden, there was a huge explosion at the bus station.
Wow.
And he happened to be a member of the, I guess they call it constabulary police. Again, his observation of just me as a stranger in his midst was nice enough to protect me, and that's an extreme example.
Right,
but,
right.
But I would suggest that if you are interested and open and exchanging with the people of this beautiful faith called Islam, you'd realize it's a beautiful faith, and also that as you know, you have that expression, the 99 faces of God or Allah. That also, even from a layman's point of view, suggests God in everyone. And so therefore, why wouldn't you not only want to embrace the wonderful people who practice that religion, but learn from them and be touched and transformed, rather than presume that different people who appear different than you have malintent. And that's the key word, I think, to me, different. If you don't understand both similarities and distinctions,
Yes.
which differences are not neither good nor bad, but then you can never appreciate a neighbor who may be a Muslim.
And I'm sure that your recent trip to Indonesia would have strengthened that understanding and that experience that you have had with Muslims and Muslim friends, etc. So before we conclude the program, Dr. Michael Lenaghan, the 6 universities from the United States and the 6 universities in Indonesia, what's really the main goal of achievement in this mission that you have been to Indonesia on?
What together they chose to do by working what they call in consortium, meaning mutual agreement, was to focus on 6 areas, from the environment and energy to food and food security, as well as health. From eco-art, which sounds kind of random, but not at all. Not so much how to convert things into art from different ecologies, but how to use art to emphasize the shared ecology and the need to protect it. And then other subjects which would basically make both of our countries better, more effective, and more demonstrative of the strengths we have, not only materially, but the final topic was democracy and religious pluralism. And what I found to be both
Fantastic.
beautiful and inspiring about that, because at first I thought, that sounds like a lesson we all need to be working on in the United States,
Right.
which of course it is, by the way.
Yeah,
But likewise, in the world's most widely populated by Muslim population, a genuine concern among the intellectual leadership to understand in democracies there is respect for the plurality of religious belief. And I just thought we're both very much concerned about the same thing, and the instrument of education, higher education, in essentially helping democracy in both of our cases, because they're the 3rd largest democracy in the world. We're the 2nd, and of course India is the 1st. And I just thought, I feel so good working as a colleague with these shared goals. The science and technology of which I'm less informed than I should be, but I'm learning. And then, however, the religious and also pluralistic dynamics of religion in a democracy, I think both of our countries, both of our democracies can be very well informed by research, development, and then also faculty and student exchanges to make us more articulate and sharing as higher education permeates each of our societies.
No, that is superb. That is phenomenal. It is superb. And I think that that is going to be very successful for the students and the people who would participate and seek to benefit from that sort of coming together of different faiths and cultures and the diversity from Indonesia to America. It's really, really phenomenal. And I think God has chosen you to go on a mission like that to represent your college and the other universities here in the United States of America, and has created a bond between you and Indonesia, the Muslims. I mean, where you got the largest population of Muslims in the world, practically speaking, with diversity and different faiths, etc. I mean, it's really a wealth of knowledge. That's why it is really a pleasure, Dr. Michael, to have you on this show, so that our viewers throughout the world can learn from your experience and learn from the knowledge that God has blessed you with in your travels throughout the world. So I want to thank you very much for being with us on this show, and you can take a few seconds to conclude in a few closing remarks.
Well, I would like to thank you for the privilege of being here, but as you have been in the past and are in the present, and I hope will be in the future, that you would work closely with us from within our own community as we relate to this new relationship in another part of the world, but among people of faith who can learn from each other and operate more effectively in a pluralistic society, making a more effective democracy. Because then, Democracy's College, as we like to call Miami-Dade College, can be made more effective once again, and once again, with your own wonderful input in that process. Thank you.
You know, it's always a pleasure. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it was indeed a pleasure, and I would want to say a blessing from God to have with us in the studio Dr. Michael Lenaghan, a professor at Miami-Dade College, a man with a wealth of knowledge and experience who has traveled throughout the world. Once more, feel free to tune in to Al-Hikmat TV to view our very well known and viewed show throughout the world, Interfaith Views and Issues, on Al-Hikmat TV 24/7 online. Thank you very much.
Allahu, Allahu,